Padre que estás en el cielo, gracias por este día, Señor. Gracias porque estamos con bien y salud. Te pedimos que nos ayudes a entender tu palabra para poder aplicarlo a nuestra vida y entender más de ti. En nombre de Cristo Jesús. Amén.
Okay, so what did we read last time? A long time ago, right? It's been a couple of weeks already since we actually got to this chapter, but what was the last chapter we actually read? Obviously, I'm not giving you the chapter here, so chapter 3. Okay, and what did we talk about in chapter 3? The banishment. Okay, yep, and that's Adam and Eve's punishment, right? As far as for listening to the serpent, and choosing their own, pretty much like choice was to eat of that fruit, right, and partake it, so that way they can become like God, right? That's what we actually read, right? It's been a long time. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of the other stuff. Okay, so then now this week, right? What are we talking about? Cain and Abel, right? So what do you guys know before we get to Cain and Abel, right? What is the actual majority of like what do you guys understand from Cain and Abel? You guys have okay. Here you go. Oh, you're just passing it out. Oh.
I guess just from reading.
Yeah.
So who's Cain and Abel?
They're brothers, sons of Adam and Eve.
So that's from chapter 3.
Yeah. One had a better offering. One got punished. Wait, was
What's that? Cain killed Abel. Yeah. Okay.
was Abel? I mean, was Cain like also like
Check.
banned
Okay.
from being like with his parents, like after he killed them?
Wait, what? Say again. I didn't
'Cause,
understand
like,
that
he
one.
like God punishes Cain, right?
Okay.
And it's like go out, right?
Okay.
So he's like by himself, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you guys, yeah, you're getting there. Yeah.
But like,
So,
okay,
Does he get banned from seeing his parents too? Is his question.
it's kind of a random question.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's pretty random. That's okay. But yeah. Okay. So then,
So they said Cain and Abel are brothers.
right.
They're sons of Adam and Eve from
Okay.
chapter 3.
Yeah.
One's jealous. One's very jealous.
Okay.
One of them dies. One of them gets punished.
Punished.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty much the summary.
Okay. All right. So
Not so hard.
yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, he's like exhausted already. So yeah, that's the main thing, right? I want to try and get you guys to get like all the answers out, but just to kind of see, what we're gonna get into right now as far as the Cain and Abel. So I have everything as far as like on the slides, as far as section off as with the verses, and we'll just talk about those sections as we go through.
and remember, so just as a FYI, chapter 4 is very similar or similar to chapter 3 on what happened in a way, but see if you
Yep.
can figure it out as we're reading it.
Okay, so we'll like we do like usual. We're just gonna just pick somebody as far as to read it, and we'll just kind of go from there, or we just do random
that's
per
fine.
slide,
We'll just
Yeah.
go from
left to right.
7, 8. There's 8 of us.
8 of us. It should be fine. You're good. Don't worry about it. We're all here to learn. No excuses. All right, you guys ready? Yeah. Okay. That's sure. Okay. You got it.
Go
It's
ahead, Eric.
easy.
Okay, Eric started.
You got the mic? Let's just do 1 and 2 for right now. Go ahead.
Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel.
Okay, so what do you guys, what do you see? They were born. Okay.
Mm.
What else? Nothing tricky. Just like, what can you learn from this, or what? Cain was first. Abel was second.
Okay. Punishment? Wait, to have kids? I don't think that was
Okay.
a punishment. Was to kids? Say again, Eric. Hold on. To have them was to be a punishment.
Yes.
Okay. But remember we talked about last time though, right? When we said last time was that like it wasn't gonna be always like a physical pain, right? It was just the pain as far as not even a pain, but just the endurance of even having a child to begin with, right?
Endurance meaning like work to have a child is it's gonna take a lot of work for you to raise a child, for you to care for the child. So this gives kind of like an introduction to like, okay, so how is having a child gonna be difficult? And you're gonna see there's gonna be jealousy among this having children. So another thing is Cain was born first, Abel was born second. What in the beginning of the first chapters was first and second? Same day. No. Yes and no. Also, the animals. Remember that the animal were created first and then humans. Okay. That's the only thing I want to point out.
Yep.
Next.
Okay, so let's go to finish off. Oh, you already did. I think you have the next part of chapter of the verse 2, Eric. Because I think you said now Abel, yeah.
Now Abel kept flocks and Cain worked the soil.
Okay, so let's look at this first, right? So when I was younger, right, and when I first started reading as far as like in the Bible, like little kid, right, I always thought like reading like when we get to like 4 or 5 and everything else later on, I always thought that
probably read 4 and 5. You should probably read.
You want us to go ahead and do that one?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and do that one. So verse 3, in the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, and Abel also brought an offering, fat portions of some firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked on favor with Abel on his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Right? So reading this section right now, right? Whenever I looked at this, I was always thinking that when I was a little kid, because Cain brought like his job, right? So let's come back a little bit more, right?
So even more back.
Yeah, so whenever we looked at, right, what?
Offering. What are they doing?
Yeah, so let's go to the offering. You had this one?
Oh. So what do you guys think offering? Pay for the sins. That could be one too.
Dang, Eric got the back, bro.
Yeah. So usually back in the day, like when you committed sins, like in order to be forgiven, you had to bring like this animal sacrifice. So that could be one thing. Another thing that offerings usually happen is just to give thanks, right? Because are you bringing offering to church right now for what?
That's just an easy example.
I don't know.
What did you say? Yeah.
Paying your way to heaven.
Paying your way to heaven? Oh, wow.
No, a lot of people think that.
Yeah.
But it's just the way. It doesn't really say like what they were doing, but it's just they were bringing offerings, so it's probably just to give thanks. Sometimes to just give thanks for, hey, the food that I have from what I work in, from the fruits or from the harvest or from the herds that I have here. Here's the best of the best. Okay.
Yeah, I think like another way to put this too, like for me personally, right, whenever I first got my first job, when I got money in, I was just thinking like I need to give something back to my family. So I gave a little bit of money back to them in the very beginning just to be like, hey, thanks, here's some money for for the fuel that you gave me around. I think that's like
even
similar
like
to
family
me.
members, right? I don't know. I know we do. It's like our parents give money to our parents in Mexico, kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, right, like not all of us. I mean, I know not all you guys are kids, right? Either way, but it's fine. But even like Daisy and I, right? Like now that we're like grown ups and we're actually working everything else, we don't work the fields. So what can we give to God to pretty much say,
Thanks.
this is our portion. This is our way to say thank you and to give back to the church as far as the members or anything else. So we don't. That's like you said, diezmo, right? Would be like the one that tithings anything else. Yeah, nowadays would be like that. But back then, there wasn't like currency or anything else like that. A lot of times it was just exchange of things back in the day, right? So yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They're just giving thanks for what they were being provided by God. Because everything here is God. Nothing is ours.
Right.
Okay.
So now when we go back to start talking about like what they do, right? So what does Abel do? He takes care of what? The herds. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now what does Cain do? Plants and harvest. Okay. Yeah. So do you think these two jobs are equal? Yeah, you said no? Why do you say no? Because this is where I struggled as a kid. Because I was like, man, he's going to bring an offering of this, like, fat lamb. And over here he's going to bring us some, like, strawberries. You're just like, This isn't fair. That's what I thought as a kid. I was like, this doesn't seem right.
Let me back up just
Yeah,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit. The question for Osiel and anybody who doesn't know, like the main question that happens at in that section is like, why is it that God was looking
In favor.
in favor of one,
Abel's, yep.
the one that brought the fruit, and not to the one who brought?
You said it backwards, but yeah.
Yeah.
In favor of the one with the animal compared to the one without animal, and just only brought
That's
fruits.
the question there. So now that's why.
So, and what I'm just trying to do first is say, does their employment? Let's just begin with their employment, right? As far as saying one is actually harvesting, as far as the crops, and the other one is actually taking care of the animals. Is there a difference as far as saying one is better or worse than the other one is? Let's just start with that. So you said no. You said yes. As far as, or backwards, whatever it case may be. Does anybody else have anything? What do you think, Osiel? The same?
Is my
Okay,
job
Harvesting is harder? Okay. I picked on you because you have animals, man. That's why. Can a flocks harder? Okay. Okay, so let's just go right there. So, and this is where, like, when I first started reading, I was a little kid, I was always thinking, I was like, man, Cain is already behind. Like, he's behind on what he can actually give. So, therefore, he's already, they're showing favor to Abel because obviously so much easier to look at this, huge animal, and it's like, wow, what a good job, Abel, that you did. But in reality, they're the same employment. There's nothing different about their employment. They both were equally hard, and as far as at the same time equally rewarding when it came to what they can actually grow from it, right? How long does it take for you to grow a cow, right? As far as like from the very bottom to make it get really big, start producing milk, and to have it reproduce another one and another one, like, it takes time, right? Same thing with the harvest. You plant something down. How long is it going to take? It's not like you're not either one. You're going to get a reward instantly. It doesn't happen, right? So they're both equally difficult to do. So now the question is, why is it that God looked to favor with Abel but didn't look in favor of Cain? Go ahead. Yeah, microphone.
Brought the best that he had, and then it says that Cain brought some of the fruits.
Okay, there you go.
So yeah.
Yeah, so that's the main thing, right? Is the wording of it, right? So like when you look at pretty much like the wording on this one, it says, like you said earlier, right? It says in the course of it, Cain brought some fruits of the soil, right? And that's pretty much it. But Abel brought the fat portions and the firstborn of the flocks, right? And so let's just look at just those two things as far as the fat portions and the fruits of the soil, right? The way I was thinking about Daisy and I were talking about earlier was that, like, if you just found like some fruit that's on the ground, you're not really inspecting it to say, oh wow, like this is actually like this is what I really want to represent to God as far as like how difficult my job is, to say what you guys are doing as far as difficulty, and this is how much I can like show, like I'm taking the biggest one and giving it to him. They're pretty much saying on this one, Cain just said, hey man, this is good enough. I picked it up and didn't really do anything with it. I'm gonna go and just drop it off to him. But Abel's inspecting it. He's inspecting his flock to find out, okay, I got 5 here. What's the biggest? This one. Okay, this one just gave pretty much birth to this other one. I'm gonna give him my firstborn to show that like I'm really thinking about my offering, not just saying, hey, here you go. I'm gonna give you whatever I can find. Like you said earlier, some. It's pretty much saying he's really taking the time to understand what he's doing, which we see that later on, right? When it comes to inspection, like so, like the Jewish people, right? They have a thing with their dieting and what they eat, right? They don't just cook everything on the same surface all the time or the way they actually, do certain things. They have to have things done in a certain way to get it going. Kosher, exactly right. Thank you.
Anybody heard that word before? Kosher?
You never heard kosher?
Kosher meal? Okay, well, if you ever do, that's what I mean. Kosher.
No.
Huh? It means that they can't, like...
It's the way you prep the food. It pretty much has to be done a certain way. As far as, so that way, when you actually see a Jewish person talk, like, as far as go eat stuff, usually, if they're really into it, right, like that, they're not going to go to McDonald's and go eat whatever, right? They're actually, if they're practicing the faith, they're going to have their meals done a certain way, usually, right? From what I understand, right? And so same thing with here. You can see with Cain's already kind of, or Abel's already having that thing as far as like he's trying to inspect certain things, right? So that's kind of like what I was trying to get at in that one. So we know now it's not from their employment. It's just the way that they actually brought certain things over, right? As far as the inspection. So, so now we talked about that. So now it's pretty much what's the significance of Abel's firstborn? Do you guys know of any stories of firstborns? And there's tons of them in the Bible. You guys think of them?
Firstborn.
Firstborns.
I was like, maybe she was.
So if we were to go in order as far as
Start from
what
the beginning.
start from the beginning as far as firstborns, right? Let's just go to
Something.
Abraham. Okay, even before then.
Esau and Jacob.
Okay, you said Esau and Jacob.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you
Yeah.
said earlier than that. Oh, yeah, that is earlier. No, that's later.
Yeah. So what's before Abraham?
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, I'm back. I got
Yeah.
dyslexia going on. Afterwards, okay. Sorry, I'm in Exodus now too. So yeah, Moses. Yeah. Sorry,
Oh.
my dyslexia is kicking in. Yeah. So what happens in Exodus with the firstborns? On both sides, remember, there's two separate sides.
They get thrown to the.
So the Egyptians, what does Pharaoh do? It's okay. You don't worry about it. Don't worry. Of the Israelites, right?
Yeah.
Firstborn males from Israelite, he kills them.
Yeah.
No, not that. Yeah. He was trying to control the Israelites. Yes. Yeah, as far as saying like he doesn't want them to grow to get out of hand because then he won't be able to control them anymore. He was trying to find ways to manipulate them, as far as to control them and not to let them go crazy because certain things were happening, right? And then God comes back and retaliates, right, and takes care of his, right? So now, what about Moses though? In that time frame, right, whenever they're trying to kill, who is Moses a firstborn that ends up almost dying? He's in that period where he's an Israelite, right? And what happens to him?
He gets hidden.
He gets hidden, right? And he goes down where? Down the river. And then who grabs him?
The princess.
Okay, yeah. And they take care of him, right? And they bring him in. The irony is they're trying to kill the firstborns. And yeah, the one comes into their household and lives just like them, right? And then he doesn't know about it. And so without this whole story, story about firstborns, I mean, like Moses wouldn't really be here, right? And then what happens in that same time frame, right? In that same category, right? Now we're talking about with Abel brought over his firstborn from the flock, right? As far as like lambs and everything else. So what happens whenever God says you got to do a certain thing or else you'll die? With the Egyptians. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And what's that called? Yeah.
Passover.
Oh, there you go. There you go. They're just trying to give you guys. So that's what pretty much they're trying to do, right? They have to go and inspect, right, the lambs, right? They have to find the ones. They have to take the blood, right, and actually, what's that? Yeah. So they have to put blood over the door, right? And when they actually do that, they say pretty much they're now in a covenant with God, saying that there's this lamb, right? That's actually the lamb's blood is what takes away their sins, but at the same time they're making that covenant with God at that time frame. So now, we're talking about like Abraham and his firstborn. That's true. That's true. But now, what else is like the lamb that's next afterwards? Like way after. What's the thing we're always talking about all the time?
Yeah, that's you guys.
You said it, but you're kind of like
Because then you. What'd you say after?
with the thing we always talk about all the time.
Oh yeah, I heard something else. So I was like, what?
Oh no. So yeah. So Jesus, right? So Jesus is what? The Lamb of God, right? So and I know we're kind of like getting further and further away, but what I'm trying to show is that just starting from right here, starting on verse 4, right? Talking about Abel and what he's doing with his firstborn as far as like in his flock and the fat portions. Just think about this, because this stays with us for a long time later on how they actually, like Dave was saying earlier, they grab a lamb, they try to find the best one. Later on, they pretty much let the blood pour out for the whole city, right, to bore out its sins on this lamb, right, all this other stuff. So this stuff continues from pretty much the beginning right here. I was just thinking as far as the symbolism, how Abel pretty much was able to work this out was later on, given as far as like traditional things later on for the rest of the Israelites. So that was just my little 2 cents on that one. Did you have anything on this one before we move ahead?
So okay, so he went into, so basically if you're following on the live or whatever, so we talked about the 1 through 2.
Yep.
And then now we know their employment. One is cattle, whatever, farmer.
What's that?
Livestock does livestock.
Yep.
The other one works the fields.
Yep.
And then they bring offerings, right?
Yeah.
Each one brings offerings, so they bring like, hey, thank you. It's kind of like your mom or anything like that. Like you just want to say, oh, thanks, here, thanks for making me food, whatever. It's a way of just saying thanks to the Lord. And Abel also, so it says brought offerings, and then you see what he brought. Then the Lord looked in favor of Abel, the one with the firstborn flock, but Cain, he did not. So it doesn't really say why he did look in favor of Abel's and not, like, why he liked the offering that Abel gave and Cain gave. It's very, like, it doesn't really say it.
Yeah, just say like the specifics of like
Because
this is exactly why I don't like what you
and
brought.
a lot of the Bible is like that. It doesn't really tell you because it wants you to kind of think things through. So being in favor is pretty much like acceptance, and this is what we were talking about. So I was telling Chris that we both have same type of job, right? But if he were to, like, say have like a higher position than I do, wouldn't I say to God, oh God, you're favoring him more than you are me? Couldn't that go through my mind? Like, why is it that you're favoring Chris and giving him all this blessing, but yet I'm still having the same job and I'm not seeing that blessing? I could see myself being in that same position, and this was just an example, right? And maybe you guys have same examples too, maybe with your siblings too, right? Like me and Eric is another example. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, so pretty much what you're just trying to say on this one is that, like, there's times in our life where that usually we will look at somebody else, not even a sibling, but just somebody else, and just figure out how come we're just not in that same position as they are, and just trying to understand, like, what am I doing wrong, or what are they doing to pretty much kind of question it, right?
So
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I gave my example with Chris, right? And I'm going to give my example with Eric, or even with Junior. I'm going to give it with Eric because I think this is an easy example. Like, why, like, I can complain to God and say, hey, God, like, why is it that I have to study so hard for, like, an exam to, like, get a good grade, and then Eric just, like, plays video games all the time, and out of nowhere, like, he just makes straight A's, right? Like, how, right? Why is he giving Eric, I don't think like that, but why is
I do.
why did God give him more knowledge than he gave me, or why is he able to, like, get better grades without having to try so hard than me? That could be an example, right? Among you girls too, right? Like, maybe you guys have, I don't know about, just think about it. Just think about when you go home, like what you guys deal with, and you with Vanessa too. Like, you guys aren't the same, but, like, either of you two, all three of you. But there might be some times where you're like, why is it that this person's better at it than I am? Or
Sure.
But what I'm trying to get at is, what am I trying to get at with this, Chris?
Oh, that pretty much, and we're going to talk about that in the next section, right? As far as between 6 and 7, it comes up again. So we'll keep talking about it again.
Yeah.
So let's go on to the next slide. So
The last thing I wanted to say is that, so he already, so here at Cain, he sees that Abel, for some odd reason, God's showing some sort of favor, whether it's, I told Chris, maybe there's light coming to him and no light coming to the one offering that Cain gives.
Oh, you're kind of like, kind of thing or whatever?
Yeah. I'm not saying that that's what it is, but
yeah,
it could be like that.
Sure.
But for whatever reason, whatever's happening in that scenario back in that day, Cain saw that he was being treated a little bit more favorably than what he was. And the last sentence of the first 5, it says that Cain was very angry. So now you have this emotion being built up.
Yeah, and
that is not good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so like on 5, right, God just sees this, right, as far as so they're writing this out, but now we're going to see in 6, he's going to question him, right? So here, let's go to 6. So, Gigi, got 6? You get the microphone?
Okay. The Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast?"
Oh, just keep going. Yeah, just keep going the whole thing.
Okay. If you do what is right, will you be accepted? Will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it.
That's not dyslexia, but sure. So yeah, so let's go back to the beginning, right? So Daisy was saying as far as being angry, right? So why is Cain angry? We kind of covered a little bit more, but why is Cain angry?
And what you said at the beginning, right? He's jealous. For whatever reason, he's being jealous.
Right. So saying back, verse 5, right? Cain, as far as he didn't look as far as with at his offering with favor. So now, downcast. Do you guys know what downcast means? Mad. Okay. Anybody else? Downcast. It's not hard. All it pretty much means is like, you know what a casting is? You cast something out. So you're just downcast. He's just looking down. Right? Cain's just looking down. His face is down. And what does that usually mean? When you see somebody with their head down, like just kind of like
They're
this.
sad.
Yeah, frustrated, sad, whatever. I mean, upset, angry. And we saw angry. So that's all he's trying to say, right? It's saying that his face was down, right? And so God's asking him, why is your face down? Like, why are you upset? Why are you angry, right? And then 7 says, right, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? Do you guys understand what that means?
So I have a different translation here.
Yeah, go for it. What's your
Isn't
translation?
it true, if you do well, you'll be lifted up?
Do you guys understand that? Yeah? For those of you that don't worry about it if you guys don't. It pretty much means, right, like, if there's an offering, and like there's Daisy and I giving an offering, she does her part, I do my part, right? But if I find out that, like, man, she actually gave more than I did, should I be, like, concerned about what she's doing? Should I think, like, hey, you know what? She's doing better than me. I need to find some excuse to be upset about this one. I need to find some reason to be upset. No, like, a lot of times what God's trying to say on this one is pretty much like that she's going to do her part, you're going to do your part. Sometimes you're not going to meet on the same page or be level with somebody else on the same time frame. Stuff happens. Like Eden was saying earlier, like, hey, I kind of got, like, lost for a second. Sometimes we just not focus all the time on certain things, and it is what it is. But he's pretty much saying, if you're doing what is right, you're doing your part. Yeah, you gave your offering. It's not as good as what Abel's was, but if you're doing your part, like, does that not mean that you should be okay and content with this, like, with yourself on doing this? And like what they saying earlier, it's like a lot of times we don't do that. We try to find ways to look at something else to figure out that's unfair.
Just going back to my example with Eric. Sorry, Eric. I knew you wouldn't care or wouldn't mind. But if go back to that example, like, am I gonna be content that even though he gets it faster, am I gonna be content if he makes it faster than I do? Or I'm giving it my all, so I'm gonna be content. I'm gonna be like, okay, this is as good as I'm gonna get. I'm not as smart as he is, but this is the best I can get.
Yeah, and I think just like for an example, right? Like for me, like okay, so we used to go like mountain bike racing all the time, and I knew Daisy was really, really good. She was really good at what she was doing. She was racing all the time. Yeah, and she can beat those girls out there, right? I mean, she has a trophy at the house to show it. No big deal, right? But she would get to a point where she would just be like, no, like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay, just not really doing much. And I'm always in my head, I'm just like, I know you can do so much more. Like, you can actually push yourself. But like how Daisy said, like, this is only like the most mature person as far as her and her dad. Like, they know when they get to a point, they can just say, I don't really have anything to prove anymore. Like, I'm totally fine with just what I can do with just this. And I'm just like, no, like, I have so much more to prove. Like, I need to show everybody that I can do more.
Be better than the
Exactly
next person.
right. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the word. Be better than somebody else. I have such a competition type mentality that it messes me up. I can't just be content with being like, hey, this is enough.
Second place.
Yeah, exactly. Second place. Daisy. but there. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to accept that sometimes. And what I'm just trying to say is like we're not. A lot of us are going to be like Cain. We're just not in that mindset. That mindset to pretty much say, hey, we're okay with it. But I like what they said the next part, right? Which is, but if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door. Say what? If you do not do what is right. Do not do what is right. If you
That's what
it says up there.
If you do
No,
not
second
do it-
part. The first part is if you do right, hey, should you not feel like you're totally fine and controlled? Second part, but if you do not do what is right, sin is scratching out your door. No. So what does that mean then? So if one part's saying, if you do right, don't worry about others. Second part saying, But if you don't do right, what's happening?
Exactly.
Yeah, sin's at the door. So what does that mean, though, right? Sin's at the door. So if they said earlier, there's a similarity between what happened with Adam and Eve and what happened in Cain and Abel. What's the similarity that happened? No, before that, though. Temptation. There you go. The temptation. And what is the temptation? It's sin. Exactly right. So,
Yeah.
and that's what we're trying to get at, right? Is that like, if you allow yourself to open up as far as to like say this isn't right, what ends up happening all the time, and like what me and you were talking about earlier, it's like jealousy could be the first thing that comes to your mind that says, "Hey, I envy this person of what they can do compared to what I can do," right? Or I don't like that somebody went and gave that person a pat on the back and said, "Good job on that test. You got 100. You got an 80. Hey, better luck next time." Whatever the case may be, when you start thinking bad, that's when there's something bad's gonna happen. And what's the next part, right after the simile? Oh, go ahead, Daisy.
Well, no, I just find again, it all starts with like your emotion. We're all gonna get. I think we all like at some point in time we get that emotion of being
yeah.
angry, of being jealous, of wanting to be more competitive, of
yeah.
What else?
Throwing shade.
I know. Of being prideful. I think it all starts there, right?
Yeah.
And then you should ask yourselves when you get to this thing is like, should I be angry? Should I be jealous? And then sometimes I found myself too. I've been jealous in certain parts. I'll be honest, right? In certain things, and I'm just like, I shouldn't feel like this, and I'm fighting with myself like, I shouldn't feel like this. This person deserved this, or this person like if they got whatever they got, then that's should be fine with me, and I'm fighting this constantly. So
Right.
it's at that point when you guys notice it. Like,
It's
what
already
do you
bad.
do?
Yeah. You have to find a way to change it. Yeah.
So
So that's the next part, right? So here's some words that we might seen before, right? So if sin is crouching at your door, it desires to have you. We saw desire before. That word. Where did we see that at?
Yes.
Okay, desires for your husband. Yes. And Anya, dude, she's like encyclopedia, bro. She like knows everything. Okay, so yeah, so we said back in Genesis 3:16, right? For Eve, because what she did as far as to have the fruit, right? And she gave to pretty much Adam, right? It says your desire now will be towards your husband, and he will rule over you, right? And we said, Daisy was saying before, is it positive or negative? Back in chapter 3:16, she said, is that positive or negative that her desire will be for her husband? Do you guys remember? And what did we say? Was that good or bad? She said it could be both. I'm saying it's good. No big deal, right? Yeah. But now, right here, no, we're not. If sin is crouching at your door and it desires to have you, is this positive or negative? Negative. And why is it negative?
Sin.
It's sin. Okay, yeah. And so we already know, right, already saying that, hey, if sin is at the door, we think that sin is already bad and we know it's bad. But now it says, if you don't do what is right, it's going to have you and it wants you. It's going to try to take you. Right? But now what does the next part say? But you must rule over it. What's that?
What? Yeah.
Fight from it?
Which is
Yeah.
what I was telling you guys I was doing. I was like, I knew it. I identified it. And now I'm trying to figure out how to not have that feeling.
Right. And so right here, what is God telling us to do? You guys are saying for us to pretty much rule over it. Just like in the beginning, the commandments pretty much are saying that like we have to pretty much rule over the animals, over the sea, over the fish in the sea, all that stuff, right? Same thing. We must rule over sin. Sin cannot rule over us. Because as soon as you let yourself go through sin a little bit, you're done. It's hard. Like, you ever heard the phrase like it's easier to dig yourself a hole than it is to get out of it? Yes. You ever try to dig yourself? Okay, dig a hole 10 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you dig. You don't have a ladder. You just dig. You just keep digging. You keep throwing that dirt out. How you can get out? You get it now?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to make sure.
I didn't understand the concept. Now I do.
Yeah. So pretty much like with sin, every little time you get a little bit of it, it just makes it so much harder to get out of it. And so that's the main thing, right? So God wants us, right, to be in control of it. He doesn't want us to be tempted, right, from anything else. So if you look back at what Adam and Eve were and what Cain and Abel is, right? Cain is just like his parents. Why? Not your question. Sinful. Yes, exactly right. At the very top, sin. right? Go ahead. You have something?
Yes. So the last thing I was gonna say, I'm not gonna say it because I get out of breath. But all verse 7. I have a note here that this is for if Vanessa listens to this part of it or she's watching live. This is because remember I said this chapter mirrors chapter 3. This is Cain is at the tree. He's like think that he's at the tree, and God's telling him, "Are you angry?" Right? And then he's giving him a choice. If you do what's right, then nothing's gonna happen to you. But if you do what's not right, then you're gonna be tempted, right? So in verse 7, sin. Remember we were talking about this at Enya that sometimes the snake was the snake was this creature that had Eve take from the tree. But nowadays, and even in this story, the snake is no longer a thing. It's actually sin and the thoughts. Yeah,
Right.
Sins is what this represents. The snake in this scenario.
Right.
So that's pretty much what I wanted to point out, that he's at the tree and he's been given the choice of do right or what's wrong. And then the next verse is going to tell you what he decides. The last thing I was going to mention is, so I just have this note that says, do good. God probably said, do good, right? I looked on your brother's offerings and not yours. You don't have to let it ruin your life.
Mm-hmm.
Move forward. So that's what he could have done, but he doesn't. He doesn't just move forward.
Mm-hmm.
He actually takes
And acts on it.
and acts on it, acts on his emotions.
Okay, so we go 8 through 12. Who's next? Okay, go ahead.
Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I don't know," he replied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The Lord said, "What have you done?" "Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth."
So let's start from the beginning, right, on 8, right? So 8 says, now Cain said to his brother, let's go to the field, right? So here he knows what he's trying to do. He's going to take him out, middle of nowhere, and he's just going to try to pretty much kill him. And he does, right? So why does he kill him, though? What are the characteristics we talked about earlier? Remember in Genesis, jealousy, right? Yeah, so all those things that we tried before, it's the jealousy, everything else, that he has anger, right? That's the sin talking in him that he let pretty much rule over himself, right? He couldn't take over it as far as he couldn't control it. So he let it pretty much come into him, and he acted on that, right? Go ahead.
No,
Oh,
I was
you
gonna
got
say, like,
something.
what is driving that sin? What started again? I'm gonna go back to that. What started? What? Like, what emotion started this? Anger. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is on chapter 5.
Yeah,
Verse 5.
Verse 5, yeah.
So-
So now we go to pretty much like on verse 9. Then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? We've seen this before as far as when God's trying to talk to certain people. And who's he talking to before?
Verse 3.
Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
right? And then what does Adam and Eve say? Or what does God say to Adam and Eve? Where are you? Right? But we already know God knows everything, right? And Adam and Eve probably know that as well. They know, hey, God knows everything. And so you shouldn't really try to hide anything from from God at all, right? And so back in chapter 39, right, he says, he asked Adam and Eve, where are you? And they said, we're hiding. And so, why are you hiding? And right away, they pretty much gave out and said, hey, this is what happened. We messed up. Here you go, right? But now let's go to verse 9 again, right? He says, where's your brother Abel, right? Adam and Eve didn't come back with like some really sarcastic remark.
They just blamed each other.
They just said, hey, we're at fault. That guy's at fault as far as the serpent, whatever. We're all to blame here, We're all in this big old circle, right? But verse 9, he's talking to just one person, right? And he says, and what does Cain come back with? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Am I supposed to be in charge of this guy everywhere he goes? Am I supposed to know where he goes to the bathroom? Like, that's what he's coming back with. He's coming back with a very sarcastic remark to God. And so it's kind of like, man, like you're already like starting off really bad, right? Like it's not gonna look good for you. So if you look at what Adam and Eve did, right? Adam and Eve came with like right away, they tried to say, hey, we messed up. Cain still does not acknowledge that he did anything wrong. Still doesn't really. He's like, I think I still kind of probably get away with this. Like, I'm not gonna confess to anything at all, right? So he's even worse than what Adam and Eve were, right? Because he just keeps lying. He keeps digging himself a greater hole, and he keeps going further and further down, right? So the next thing we have, right, is pretty much he responded back, right, and then let me see. Sorry, this screen is too small. Okay, so now when you get back to verse 10, the Lord says, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out from me, or to me from the ground." What does that mean? Do you guys know what that
The
means?
whole thing. Now under a curse from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work, the ground will no longer yield its crop. Like what pops out for you guys that we've studied in the last 3 chapters? He's being punished. What else?
He has to work more for the crop? Yeah?
Where? Yeah,
Ground. Yeah.
that's the common like.
Exactly right. So what happened with Adam and Eve in the ground before? So what was one of the curse that they gave to Adam? Not even give to Adam. Gave the curse to the crop to the ground. What's his what? Yeah, if he had to work hard before, now he works extra hard. Now he has to sweat from his brow. Right? That's what they said.
Which
So
now this one is even worse. Huh?
Yeah.
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 It won't yield any crops.
Yeah. If you do the best thing, you put some fertilizer down. Sorry, it's not gonna do anything
Most
for you.
expensive fertilizer out there. Nothing
Yeah.
will come out.
It's just, and that's what I'm saying. And if we go back to
So
what was Cain's job? All he knows how to do is what?
Work the field.
The field. That's all he knows how to do. And so now you take that away from him, he's got nothing. He's got
So
nothing.
you see how that mirrors chapter 2? Okay, so now even more, there's another one in there that mirrors like the other 3 chapters. Blood cries out to me from the ground which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Where is the blood going? Who's crying out? The ground. So we are created from the ground, and to the ground we will go.
Yeah. So just like that. I mean,
And
like
it's very poetic because it says
Yeah.
from. So the blood's already crying out to the Lord, and then from the ground which opened its mouth to receive. So it opened its mouth. I thought that was very interesting. How like the ground opened its mouth to receive his brother's blood. So it goes back to the whole thing that we came from the ground, and to the ground we're going back.
and which is crazy because we go back to the whole crops, right? Like the blood is going to the ground, and his job is literally to work with the ground. So I mean, he's literally messing up the as far as like the purity we talked about before, as far as like how things can be pure, right? So Adam and Eve not pure anymore. They got shunned out, right? Cain works with the ground. He doesn't even respect it enough because guess what? He kills his brother, and the blood goes back into the ground. Like, what are you gonna do with that? Maybe it might be a little spot, but that's supposed to be the respect that you have with the ground. Is that you're supposed to be working with it, and obviously it's not. It's not doing that. Does that make sense to you guys? All right. Ready to go next one, or you got anything else?
Okay.
All right. So next, all right. Who's? Yeah. Eric. You can do the next one then. Go for it.
Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, but whoever finds me will kill me." But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden.
All right, so let's go to the first part, right? So Cain said to the Lord, right, "My punishment is more than I can bear." What does he mean by this? But is he saying, hey, the punishment of killing my own brother is more than the punishment you can give me? Or is he saying, hey, the punishment you give me because of the curse and for banishing me out is more? Which one is it? Is it what God's telling him, or is his actions of what he did with Abel? What he did? Is that what you guys think? He's still letting him live. Okay. Eric, look like you got something. You're stuck. You going number 2? As far as like whatever God told him. Yeah. That's what I was thinking too, as well. I mean, to me, I was like, I don't think because he's still not even saying sorry that he did anything. He's not repenting still about anything he did. He's just saying, man, I had it really good here. You're going to push me out of this place. And guess what? I'm afraid that somebody's trying to try to kill me. And so he's only thinking about himself still as far as what he's going to do and everything else. Because now he's going to have, this random thing over him that he's going to have to be pushed out, right? So he's saying at the very end, he's going to go east of Eden, right? So let's go a little bit before, right? And says, and the reason why he says right here, so today you're driving me, he said, let me go back. My punishment is more than I can bear. Why? Because today you're driving me away from my land, or away from the land, and I'll be hidden from your presence, and I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. So there goes pretty much your answer. He's saying, my punishment, this is why. So yeah, number 2, where we talked about earlier, right? And so let's go to 15. If you have anything before, no. You good? So 15, but the Lord said to him, not so, or he pretty much said, hey, look, even though you did wrong and you're scared and something's going to happen to you, I'll protect you. I'm going to put something over your head where even if somebody tries to do anything to you, they're not going to be able to kill you. You're just going to die an old death pretty much, or natural causes, whatever it can be. But nobody can kill Cain. And if they do kill Cain, then they're going to have something that goes against them. A vengeance is going to against them 7 times more, right? So that way Cain's like, okay, thanks God, you helped me out. I feel a little more safer. I can go wander around and do my thing as far as to find somewhere to pretty much, make camp and just be on my own. All right. So that's where I got from all that is pretty much the Lord still helps out Cain, even though Cain did wrong, right? He still pretty much forgives him for what he's done, right? That's how God's always worked that way, right? And then at the very end, right, Cain went out from the Lord's presence. He's not actually leaving the Lord's presence as far as like next to him because the Lord's everywhere. But he's kind of going away from pretty much even further away from the garden. So remember when Adam and Eve, whenever they got banished, which way did they go? What direction? East? Okay, now with pretty much Cain and Abel, right, where is Cain going? East. So it's just pretty much keep getting further and further away from it, pretty much. Hey, Matthew, can you turn it down? So that's on this part right here, right? It's kind of keeps getting worse and worse and worse, right? It's on those ones. Do you have anything on this one before we go through? Okay, this one seemed pretty simple. It wasn't like too crazy. Okay, so 17 to 22. You got the microphone, Eric? Hey, you could have read the last one.
Cain made love to his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Irad, and Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech married 2 women, one named Ada, and the other Selah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. His brother's name was Jabal. He was the father of all who play stringed instruments and pipes. Selah also had a son, Tubal Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal Cain's sister was Naamah.
So what are we reading on here? What's the main thing? Lineage. That's all it is, right? As far as saying, hey, this is Cain, right? So yeah, he found a woman. They had a kid. And also, guess what happened? He built a city, named it after his son, and pretty much said, hey, we're going to get this thing going, right? So when we look at this, right, what do we look at as far as like this whole thing? Cain being a murderer already, moved on, found something else, building a city on what? On the ground, right? But that's pretty much all from his brother, right? So he's building a city of the innocence of somebody else's blood because he got cast out, right? So if you think about that, as far as saying this city was built by Cain, something bad already happened with him, what's the rest of the city going to look like? Is it going to be a bad city or a
Like,
good city?
It's like if your parents are bad examples, most likely you're not gonna get a good
Dang,
example.
dude.
To, like, yeah,
You're going in.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no, for
it's-
sure. Yeah, exactly right.
So they had no good example to follow
Right.
in a way.
So that's what I'm trying to leave it at, right? It's just think about that when we start reading a little bit more later on. So, all right, so here we go. This is pretty much Lamech's response to Cain's punishment of killing, right? So I'll read this real quick. All right, so verse 23. Lamech said to his wives,
I'll read
Ada.
it.
Oh, go ahead.
Lamech said to his wife, Ada and Zillah, listen to me, wives of Lamech, hear my words. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech, which is him, 77 times. Adam.
That's it.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
looking up to see how.
Yeah. So what are we saying on this one? Is he, whenever Lamech is actually talking, right? And so this is like the 6th, 7th generation of Cain, right? In the city of Cain. Is Lamech pretty much saying, hey, forgive me, God, for I've done all these things. I messed up. I am forgiven. As far as I'm trying to get forgiven right now for what I've done. Is he saying that? Or is he boasting about it? Do you guys know what boasting means? Like you're bragging, right? So that's what it looks like, right?
So just FYI, he killed a man for just wounding him, and then like pretty much a young person, so like could be like a kid,
yeah.
for just injuring him.
Yeah, maybe like kicked him in the shin or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it could be something dumb. But that's what we're trying to say, right? So we're saying pretty much that he's over here, he's telling his wives, guess what I did? I killed these 2 dudes today, pretty much, right? And they're pretty much just like, okay, like I don't know what's going on. And so now verse 24 says, if Cain is avenged 70 times or 7 times, right? Then Lamech's would be pretty much 77 times. What does he mean by that? Because that's kind of confusing when you read that. It's kind of like, so Cain had a mark on him that said, if somebody kills me, they're going to be pretty much have to be avenged like 7 times over. So is he saying, if I killed somebody, then I have them the marking, and whoever kills me has a punishment?
Yeah.
Is that what you think?
Yes.
That's what you think?
Eric, you had something?
I don't think that, but you can go ahead.
I thought you had something. No? Okay.
We always look, you guys have a confused face all the
No,
time.
he was like,
Oh, so go ahead. Yep, yeah.
Saying that basically he's saved, yeah, because 7 times in the 77.
Yeah.
It multiplies.
Yeah, so the way I'm reading this, right, it's like, so Cain killed somebody, right? Killed his brother Abel, right? And when he killed his brother Abel, God forgave him, said, hey, I'm going to put a mark on you so nobody can kill you, right? If Lamech is pretty much already boasting about killing people, right, over there, he's pretty much saying, if Cain was forgiven for what he's done and was given pretty much 7 times over as far as punishment, God can forgive me for what I'm doing. Like, who cares what I'm doing? God's going to forgive me. And guess what? The reason why he's going to forgive me is, because, of Cain.
Great
So he's
fear
pretty much
of God.
he's using his, different generations to say that, like, well, he can do that. He can do this for me too. And at the same time, he's boasting about how many times he's killed somebody because now he's saying, instead of 7 times, 77 times.
But if you go back, I think
Go
it
ahead.
said that if whoever killed
Cain, exactly right.
would be avenged or punished.
Yeah.
But you're saying that he would.
I'm saying that he's boasting about how many people he's killed.
Yeah, but then you
Yeah.
would say that Lamech, he would be. I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not even talking about that as far as the avenging. It's more about, like, on that one that he's just boasting about how many people he's killed and that God should forgive him pretty much.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. You
Yeah.
forgive him 77 times, but it's that he would avenge.
Yeah. But he's not even
But
talking
he doesn't
about,
wanna
yeah.
kill him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That's me. I probably said that one wrong. Right. So, like we said, Lamech's not sad about the encounter, right? He's cool with it. He's boasting about it. He even boasted about it even more because he's saying God should forgive him, and it should be 77 times instead.
So if we stop here, it looks like
I only
I-
got one more.
I know. If we
Okay.
stop,
Ah,
if
okay.
the chapter stopped here, it
was
would
like, what?
look like, okay, these 2 people, Adam and Eve, created these 2 humans, and one of them already died, and there's one that killed him, and now he's created a city of just like people who are doing nothing but bad because his great grandson is killing and wants to continue to kill.
Yeah.
So is that the end of the story?
No.
Okay.
So next one. So I'll go ahead and do this one then. So you got something?
That's where I was confused.
Why?
It's like, yeah, I did this, and it's like, oh, but Adam made another king. I was like, what?
Now,
Yeah.
does that make sense now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where it has to go, right? So like if we and we'll let me get to after this. I'll have to reread this, right? So 25, 26. So Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, God has granted me another child in the place of Abel. Since Cain killed him, since Cain killed him, sorry, Seth also had a son and named him Enosh. At the time the people began to call on the name of the Lord. Right?
So does that make sense why this last blurb was in this chapter?
So it's kind of like. So let's go back a little bit, right? Let's go back to the serpent, right? And what happened with that. So in the serpent, right, there was a curse on the serpent. And what was the curse? That he would lay on his belly. And what else? Crawl the ground, yeah. What else?
3:16 Eric.
Enemies?
Enemy status.
So she said the seed, right? And we talked about the seed and everything else, right? That's what we talked about last time. So it said the seed of the woman is going to crush the serpent later on, right? And Daisy had that picture on there, and we saw that pretty much what was going to happen. The serpent was huge, then the man was huge, and all that stuff was going on, right?
Oh.
So because Cain was the firstborn, he was supposed to be pretty much either him and Abel were supposed to be the seed that was going to crush as far as the serpent. But it doesn't happen.
Because the serpent ended up taking Cain.
Yeah.
Well, Cain became kind of like a serpent.
Yeah, exactly right. So pretty much like the serpent kind of like won that one without really, because it means obviously it's sin, right?
Battle.
Exactly, it's
He won
second
that
battle
battle.
kind of.
Mhm.
And so now they need to pretty much think, well, we need to have an actual lineage that's going to go to pretty much to Jesus eventually, which we talked about before is going to be the seed that crushes the serpent, right? And so now that's what they're trying to do now is pretty much say, well, we need to have somebody else to take that place, right? And so that's why they pretty much try to have another one actually and pretty much name him Seth, right? So
Which I didn't know they had another child. I don't remember ever reading or being
this part
taught
on chapter 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times.
We all just think that Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
knew they had more, but I never knew that the Bible emphasized that Abel was replaced with this child.
Yeah. Yeah. They was because obviously because you can't use Cain anymore. Yeah. Yeah.
In place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not replaced. In place.
And so if we go back to what is a word or what does Seth mean?
I don't know.
Do you guys know? You don't know? You're like, I don't know.
I don't know.
So
Tell me, because I have a son I have to name.
oh, okay. It means yeah. It means appointed or placed.
Okay.
So now they pretty much saying Seth is the appointed one that will have a lineage that will crush the serpent later on in the future, pretty much, right? And that's why they named him that, right? Yeah. And Enosh just means like man. It doesn't really mean anything from what I was looking at earlier. And to go back to your point too, a lot of times you go read like random articles. I was trying to find like just random like lineages and whatever, and I was trying to go back and forth. And there's so many articles out there that says, I think it was like how can there be more people out there if there's only Adam or it's only like Cain and Abel? And I was like, man,
We
they
talked
even
about this too.
yeah, and it's like there's tons of them that just because like most people will be like, yeah, Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and that's it. So where are the other people coming from? But like, if you just finish reading 4, it talks about Seth, and so you can only can tell on certain articles that you read out there on the internet, like if they don't even include Seth, like don't even read it. Just throw it away because they're not really even reading the Bible. They're just giving some random summary out there that's not even including somebody else that's actually been written down in the Bible, right? And just like how we saw earlier with Cain married a woman, right? And so, I mean, obviously there's people there. And like you said earlier, we're going to read later on that's going to say there was other children that were made from Adam and Eve. Yes. I don't think so. Because, I mean, there's a little lineage that I have later on that I'll show you guys. And I think when Adam's life, right, it says like his year to date. Here, I think I have it over here. Yeah, and we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it's okay.
Oh, I thought you said we're
But look, like if you look at pretty much where all the lineage is at, right? And we're gonna talk about this next time, right? On this stuff, it pretty much shows, like some of these people are like Adam, right? He was still alive during pretty much almost close to Noah. Lamech was pretty much here, but this isn't Lamech pretty much where with Cain. This is Lamech from Seth, right? So there's two different things, two different names, or two different people in that one. But look at that generation. There's so much overlap. So when you think of the overlap in people, like they're making kids, even though they're not talking about them. There's so much going on there. I mean, even right here it says Adam didn't have Seth until he was 130 years old. What was he doing before 130? Yeah, like even Seth was 105 years old and before he had Enos. And so like, what was he doing before then or even after then? I mean, like there's so much in there. They're only telling you about specific people, right? As far as what's going on, they're not going to tell you everything because obviously there's only certain ones that we need to pretty much talk about. And that's what we're trying, because at the end of it, it's going to get to that point where it's going to go all the way to the very bottom as far as to show the lineage of Seth. Too bad.
That they were, Adam was still alive by the
Yeah.
time Noah was born.
No, he died. Well, Noah?
Oh,
Yeah, it was like 30 years.
he was
Yeah,
dying.
he's dying. Yeah, he lived a long life.
Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, so then now, oops, I went too far. So now, what does the last part say? The last sentence, right? That says, there it says, at the time people began to call on the name of the Lord. What does that mean?
I wanna say
Repented?
that they started to like,
They what? Got closer to God. Okay.
yeah, I feel like they started to like, like more people started recognizing him and started to actually.
Okay. Anything else? Good. Okay. So yeah, on this one's pretty much yeah. So people started actually just gathering together and worshiping and talking about God and starting to pretty much have like those church ministries, you want to call them, that says let's talk about him, let's pray, let's worship him, let's do these things. So pretty much God's telling us right here, right? This is where people really started gathering and fellowshipping. Yes, exactly right. Fellowship over him, right? So now we know if we start reading anything past this, we know that people are already talking about it. They're already congregating. They're already in fellowship with God pretty much. So it's telling us there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all. That's all chapter 4. We actually still took an hour regardless, and it was very short. So I'll try not next time. Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know about Lamech, this, that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It came in the
Yeah. And so next week, go ahead.
Our theory would be wrong if we didn't think about it, because then it's like if Cain and Abel and there was no other child, then we would have.
Yeah, we wouldn't be there. Yeah, we'll be pretty much all right. Well, it's for Cain, like, yeah. So I mean, we have no choice on that one, right? But
it's making sense now.
yeah. So chapter 5 is going to be over pretty much the lineage of Seth, and so we're going to get into that one, and then how it goes into pretty much Noah. So that's it.